You've been trying to let go for months, maybe years. You've read the books, you've meditated, you've repeated the affirmations, and yet, here you are, still holding on, still gripping that pain, that person, that past version of yourself like your life depends on it. What if the very act of trying to let go is what keeps you trapped? What if every time you say, "I need to release this," you're actually tightening your grip? This isn't motivation. This isn't another spiritual lecture about surrender. This changes everything. Because here's what nobody tells you: the one who's desperately trying to let go is the attachment itself. The grasper and the grasped are the same hand. And until you see this clearly, you'll spend your entire life in a war you can never win. Today, we unlock the paradox that has trapped humanity for millennia. The letting go lie. Picture someone drowning in quicksand. What's their instinct? To struggle, to fight, to desperately try to escape. And what happens? They sink faster. The more they fight, the deeper they go. The harder you try to hold on to something, the more it slips through your fingers. This is exactly what happens when you try to let go of emotional pain. You've been sold a lie that letting go is an action, something you do, a technique, a process, a 5-step program. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you try to let go, you've already failed, because trying is effort. Effort is tension. Tension is holding. You cannot effort your way into relaxation. You cannot think your way into peace. Every time you sit down and say, "Today, I'm finally going to release this attachment," you've already reinforced the attachment. You've given it more power, more reality, more substance. Effort creates resistance. The self-help industry has made billions selling you the illusion that you can force surrender. But forcing surrender is like trying to fall asleep by concentrating really hard on sleeping. What actually happens when you try? The grasping self. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Who is the one trying to let go? Stop and really ask yourself this. There's you, the one in pain, and then there's you, the one desperately wanting to escape that pain. But are these two really separate? Jung understood this deeply. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The self that wants to let go and the self that's holding on are the same self. It's like your right hand trying to let go of your left hand. The grasper is the grasped. They're not two things, they're one movement appearing as two. This is why every attempt to release makes you feel more stuck, because the you that wants freedom from attachment is itself an attachment. Your desire for peace is creating the war. Your craving for release is generating the prison. If this ancient wisdom is opening something in you, hit like and subscribe to unlock more treasures from the vault. Because what we're about to explore goes even deeper into this paradox that controls your life. The paradox of release. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree for years, not trying to achieve enlightenment, but sitting with the simple recognition that there was nowhere to go. You can only lose what you cling to. But notice the trap even in those words. The moment you use them as a technique, "I'll stop clinging so I stop losing," you've missed the point entirely. Now you're clinging to non-clinging. The mind creates an infinite regression of attachment. You're attached to your pain, so you try to let go. Now you're attached to letting go, so you try to accept. Now you're attached to acceptance, so you try to surrender attachment to acceptance. And down the rabbit hole you go. Each new spiritual technique becomes just another link in the chain. Every escape becomes prison. This isn't pessimism. This is precision. Because only when you see the game clearly can you stop playing it. The paradox of release is that it cannot be achieved by anyone who wants it. So what's left when wanting itself is the problem? Seeing without seeking. Krishnamurti spent 60 years pointing to something the mind cannot grasp. Not because it's hidden, but because the mind itself is the obstacle. The ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence. The answer isn't another technique. It's not a better way of trying. It's seeing, pure seeing, without the one who wants to see something different. When you look at your pain without wanting it gone, something shifts. Not because you're using acceptance as a strategy, but because for one moment there's just looking. No judge, no improver, no spiritual seeker trying to get somewhere. In that looking without seeking, the grip naturally loosens. Not because you did something, but because the doer stepped aside. This is why meditation often fails. People sit down to get peaceful, but the getting is the agitation. The seeking is the suffering. When seeking stops, not through effort but through understanding, what remains? Peace was always here, but this understanding cannot be forced. So how does it arise? The exhaustion point. There's a moment that every spiritual tradition points to. The moment of complete exhaustion, when you've tried everything, when every technique has failed, when you're so tired of the struggle that struggling itself becomes impossible. Only when the mind is silent, only when it does not name, does it experience that which is beyond the word. This isn't giving up in despair. It's a different kind of giving up. It's the recognition that the one who's been trying was never capable of succeeding. Exhaustion, not as defeat but as doorway. Rumi called it the gate of grief. Eckhart Tolle describes it as hitting bottom, the dark night of the soul, the moment when the ego finally admits its total incompetence to free itself. And in that admission, in that complete and total failure of the personal will, something else becomes possible, not through your effort, but through the absence of your effort. This is why many people only awaken through crisis. The crisis strips away every illusion that you can save yourself. What happens when you stop trying to happen? Understanding, not doing. Here's the secret that changes everything. Letting go doesn't come from doing, it comes from understanding. Not intellectual understanding, not philosophical understanding, but direct seeing of how the mechanism works. Freedom is found in choiceless awareness. When you truly understand that your hand is gripping a hot coal, you don't need a technique to release it. You don't need a 5-step process. You don't need to try to let go. The understanding is the letting go. They're not separate moments. See clearly, release happens. The problem is we intellectually know our attachments cause suffering, but we don't really see it. We know it like we know facts in a textbook, but we don't feel it in our bones. If you truly saw, not believed, not understood, not agreed with, but SAW that your grip was burning you alive, your fingers would open instantly. No effort required. Understanding is the only revolution that actually works. So the question isn't how do I let go? The question is, why do I keep pretending this fire doesn't burn? The watcher dissolves, but even here there's one final trap, the trap of the watcher. Many spiritual teachings tell you to become the observer, watch your thoughts, witness your emotions, step back and observe, and this helps for a while. But eventually you notice something disturbing. The watcher has become another identity to protect. You've created a new self, a spiritual self, an aware self, and now that self is holding on. That self wants enlightenment. That self is judging whether you're witnessing correctly. The thinker is the thought. The watcher and the watched are not two. The observer is the observed. When this is truly seen, not as philosophy but as direct experience, the entire structure of seeking collapses. There's no one left to let go and nothing to let go of. Not because you achieved something, but because the one who would achieve was seen as another thought, another movement of the same energy. And this brings us to what remains when all seeking ends. What remains? So what's left when you stop trying to let go, when you stop creating a watcher, when you stop seeking peace? When you stop doing anything at all about your pain, what remains? What remains is what was always there before you started seeking. Not a new state you achieved, not a spiritual attainment, just simple, ordinary awareness. The awareness that was present before you learned you had a problem, before someone told you that you needed to improve, before the entire machinery of seeking got started. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Suffering continues to arise. Pain still happens. Emotions still move through you. But there's no one fighting it anymore. No one trying to escape. No one making suffering into a problem that needs to be fixed. Pain comes, pain goes. And in that simple allowance, not as technique but as understanding, everything changes. Not because you found peace, but because you stopped disturbing it. The war was only ever with yourself, living the paradox. But how do you live this? How do you take this understanding into Monday morning, into your relationships, into the grief that still visits at 3 a.m. You don't take the understanding anywhere, because you are the understanding. This isn't about remembering to not try. That's just more trying wearing a costume. It's about seeing, again and again, that the one who wants to apply this wisdom is the one creating the separation. The most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. When pain comes, it comes. When attachment grips, it grips. When the old patterns return, and they will, they're simply seeing, not judging the seeing, not trying to see better, not using seeing as a technique. Just this moment exactly as it is. And somehow, mysteriously, that simple seeing is enough. Not because it fixes anything, but because nothing was ever broken. This leads us to the most important realization of all, the final freedom. The final freedom isn't freedom from your attachments. It's freedom in your attachments. Freedom, not escaping the human experience, but fully inhabiting it without resistance. The pain of loss, the ache of longing, the weight of regret. These don't disappear when you wake up. They become transparent. You feel them completely, perhaps more completely than ever, but they pass through you like weather, because there's no one holding onto them, no one pushing them away. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. This is what the mystics meant by surrender. Not trying to surrender, not making surrender into another spiritual project, but the natural falling away that happens when you finally, fully, completely see that there's nothing you can do. And in that seeing, in that beautiful, terrifying admission of powerlessness, the grip releases itself. Not because you let go, but because there was never anyone holding on. So stop trying to let go, not as a new technique, not as reverse psychology, but because you finally see the truth. The one trying to let go is the attachment. Grasper and grasped are one. When this is understood, not believed, not memorized, but seen directly, something shifts. Not through your effort, but through the absence of your effort. Let go of your attachment to being right, and suddenly your mind is more open. The war ends when you stop fighting, not when you win. The prison opens when you stop trying to escape, not when you find the key. You've been looking for freedom in all the wrong places. It was never somewhere to get to. It was always what you are when you stop pretending to be someone who needs to get somewhere. If you made it this far, comment grip released if you're ready to stop trying and start seeing. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Use it well. If this unlocks something in you, hit like and subscribe. The vault has more waiting.